Marcus Webb had learned long ago that invisible people see everything. At 38, he moved through the gleaming corridors of Vertex. Technologies like a ghost, mop in hand, earbuds in, eyes quietly absorbing the world that hummed around him. The executives never looked at him. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The engineers never nodded. The receptionist barely registered his presence as he wiped their fingerprints from glass doors and emptied their overflowing trash cans, filled with crumpled pitch decks and cold coffee cups. He was furniture. He was wallpaper. He was Marcus, the janitor on the 14th floor, and that was all anyone needed to know. What they didn't know, and what nobody bothered to ask, was that Marcus had once been something else entirely. Before his wife left, before the medical bills stacked up like fallen dominoes, before his daughter Lily's asthma treatments drained every savings account he had ever built. Marcus Webb had spent 6 years as a systems architect at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin. He had written code that still ran silently inside platforms that millions of people used every day. He had solved problems that kept senior engineers awake at night. Then life happened, as it tends to do, and Marcus found himself starting over in a city that didn't care about his past, pushing a cleaning cart through a building full of people who would never think to ask him a single question. He didn't resent them. He had moved past resentment, somewhere around the 18th month of struggle, landing somewhere quieter, a kind of steady, dignified endurance. He worked the early morning shift, arrived before the sun touched the skyline, and was usually halfway through the 14th floor before the first executive stepped off the elevator, smelling of expensive cologne and entitlement. On the morning that changed everything, Marcus was cleaning the glass wall outside the main conference room when the crisis erupted. He heard it before he saw it, raised voices, the sound of a chair scraping hard against a polished floor, someone saying the word catastrophic 3 times in a row like a prayer gone wrong. Through the transparent wall, he could see CEO Daniel Hargrove standing at the head of a long table surrounded by 15 of the most panicked faces Marcus had ever seen assembled in one room. The company's flagship product, a data management platform that served over 400 enterprise clients, had gone dark 40 minutes ago. A corrupted deployment had triggered a cascading failure across 3 server clusters, and every minute of downtime was costing Vertex somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000. The lead engineer, a sharp young woman named Priya, was typing furiously on her laptop, her face pale as paper. 2 senior developers were on speakerphone with the cloud infrastructure team. Nobody had an answer. Nobody could isolate the breakpoint. Daniel Hargrove was a man who had built a company from a garage and turned it into a $400 million enterprise through sheer force of will. But in that moment, he looked like a man standing at the edge of something very dark. Marcus paused outside the glass. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. He wasn't looking for a moment of glory. He was simply a man who understood exactly what he was hearing. And something inside him, that old instinct, that quiet professional pride that poverty had never managed to fully extinguish, would not let him walk away. He set down his mop. He knocked twice on the conference room door. Every head turned. Daniel Hargrove stared at him with an expression caught somewhere between confusion and irritation. "Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt," Marcus said, keeping his voice level, "but I heard you mention the deployment failure. If it's a cascading cluster error from a corrupted rollback, there's a manual override sequence that most teams don't know exists. It was patched into that architecture version about 4 years ago. It's not in the public documentation." The silence that followed was so complete that Marcus could hear the hum of the building's ventilation system. Priya looked up from her laptop. "How do you know that?" she asked slowly. Marcus stepped inside. "Because I helped design a version of that system," he said simply, "before I came here. Daniel Hargrove looked at the man in the grey uniform standing at the door of his crisis and made a decision that would define his character for years afterward. "Show us," he said. Marcus walked to Priya's laptop and she slid it toward him without hesitation. Later, she would say she didn't know why she trusted him so immediately, only that something in his voice carried the particular calm of someone who has earned their knowledge the hard way. His fingers moved across the keyboard with a fluency that silenced the room. He navigated 3 layers deep into the system architecture, located a diagnostic pathway that the current engineering team hadn't known to look for, entered a manual override command string from memory, and within 90 seconds, the screens around the room began flickering back to life. The platform was online. 400 enterprise clients reconnected. The bleeding stopped. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then Priya said quietly, "That was a 47-step recovery sequence. You did it from memory." Marcus straightened up and stepped back from the laptop. "I used to think about it a lot," he said. "You have time to think in this job." Daniel Hargrove walked around the table. He extended his hand and shook Marcus's hand firmly. "The way you shake the hand of someone you respect, not someone you pity." He asked Marcus his name, his background, his story, and he listened to every word without interrupting, without checking his phone, without the distracted half-attention that powerful men so often offer to people they consider beneath them. By the end of that day, Marcus had been offered a position on the solutions architecture team at a salary that would cover Lily's treatments for the next decade. He didn't cry until he got to his car. He sat in the parking garage for 20 minutes, thinking about the long road, about his daughter's laugh, about all the mornings he had showed up when showing up felt like the only thing he had left to give. Marcus Webb had never stopped being who he was. The world had simply forgotten to look. If this story moved you, reminded you that value lives in the most unexpected people, or made you want to look a little more carefully at the world around you, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that setbacks are not endings. And subscribe to Kindness True Stories for more real and inspiring tales about the quiet heroes living among us. Your support helps these stories reach the hearts that need them most.